Ready, 2, 3, 4.
Happy homecoming, fellow Bobcats. My name is Sam Spinelli. I'm a first-year journalism, news and information major here in the EW Scripps School of Journalism in the Scripps College of Communication. I just got to campus and I'm so excited to be here. Still finding my way around, but I'm loving it so far. I'm an aspiring broadcast journalist, and Dean Titsworth asked me to be your host for our contribution to the virtual homecoming series. Let's get started. As alumni, you know that Scripps is a college filled with creative people and writers and storytellers, producers of film, music, and other digital media, visual designers and game designers, photographers, scholars, etc. Creativity is a thread running through our Scripps experience, no matter our major or when we graduated or will graduate. We see that thread in VisCom professor Julie Ellman's class called The Creative Process, where students explore all aspects of their creativity. She sat down with another highly creative Athens legend and alumna, Patty Mitchell, who's the director of PassionWorks Studio. PassionWorks is a local collaborative arts center that brings together arts with developmental differences to create art and strengthen the Athens community. The clip you're about to see shows Professor Ellman and Patty Mitchell collaborating on a piece of art while they chat about their creative philosophies. To record this, they sat in Patty's driveway and, of course, wore masks to stay safe.
I taught this class called The Creative Process, and one of the things I discovered was that as excited students could be about this creative process, they still had a really hard time being comfortable with process. So they had this great, their eyes would light up, creativity, how can I be more creative? And part of that, the answer to that, is just to show up. Like in yoga, they say the hardest part is showing up to the mat. You show up to the mat and you start doing it, whether you're motivated, inspired, or not. So when you talk about just doing and keeping busy and trying things, even if, you might see them as small, maybe tasks or something, cleaning up, this, that, staying busy, that's part of the process. It's part of showing up, and I think that's really an important part of this thing we call creativity. So we're looking at the marks that we've been making here, and while we're talking, with no plan, here we go. We don't know where this is going, but it's pretty cool so far. It's not just the end product of something amazing that has to be recognized by everyone as being beautiful and perfect, and not at all.
No, my friend Mark Hackworth said to me, he said, making art's just practice. And I didn't get it for a long time. And then I realized, it's just practice. As soon as we make this has informed us for our next thing. Like, it's nice that we have evidence of our time together in this piece that is, happening. But it's just practice. And then when you realize it's just practice, it's like, I'm just, and then you just do the next thing and see what happens. And I have to tell you, it was practice for me to, because I do a lot of making in public. And it took practice to, because people are like, well, what are you doing? What's it going to be? Why are you doing that? And it's like, I didn't know at the moment. And it's like, and it's okay not to know. But
we don't know what we're doing right now, by the way. We don't know what we're doing.
Right.
There's a wonderful, I don't even know what to call it. There's a what's this board?
Insulation board.
Insulation board with a sheet wrapped around it. And we've got this circle motif here with some other circles on it and some shiny ribbon sewn onto it, and some paint and some markers, and we're just making marks with no plan. We have no plan. This is kind of feels like life right now. There's no plan. Just you have to live in the present, show up to the mat, and just start. Well, for me, taking color and pushing it around. That's the way I put it. Paint, markers, just pushing it around. It feels very satisfying, therapeutic, relaxing. Not knowing what the end result will be is okay.
It's an adventure. That's where the excitement and discovery is. I think of it as like, if you told jokes by the punchline first, it wouldn't be very interesting. That's why you don't know what the punchline is here until you get through the joke or the story. It's like because I know people who plan a lot with their projects, and that's cool. But you can just explore too. There's no one way to do things. And I am learning all about this paint and this one on that, which I've never done before.
We love that. Just show up. Making art is just practice. We hope that it's as inspiring to you as it is to us. If you've been to campus in the last 5 years or so, you've probably stopped by Schoonover Center and noticed the podcast studio in the lobby. The studio is available to any students who want to create their own podcast, and on most days in non-pandemic life, you're likely to see a student or group of students sitting under the recording light, working on their production skills. Podcasts are actually a great way to dive deeper into subjects or people that you already know a lot about, or to explore extraordinary events. And while a state-of-the-art podcast studio is certainly convenient, we're here with some advice if you don't happen to have one in your own home. We turn to a few Scripps experts for tips on how you might make a family podcast work. First up is Laura Harbert, a PhD candidate and instructor in the School of Media Arts and Studies. I think you'll find the following advice and suggested resources to be super helpful.
Hi, Bobcats. I'm Laura Harbert, a fellow alum, by the way, currently getting my PhD here at OU in mass communication. I'm also a multimedia producer and journalist, and I've been working in audio, and it's been published during the DIY era of this COVID-19 pandemic. And let me tell you, it's been a little rough at times, but I'm getting the work done. For example, I'm sitting under a blanket here at my desk, recording this script using my computer's mic. So I thought today I would share a few tips with you so that you can make audio stories or podcasts at home with something you carry around with you every day. It's called your smartphone. So here we go. First, I want to talk about StoryCorps. What's StoryCorps? Well, it's an audio project focused on interviews between two people who care about each other. You and your mom, you and your dad, brother, sister, cousin, best friend. If you've been living together during the pandemic and able to stay safe, you can do a one-on-one interview with each other via StoryCorps. All you got to do is download the app via iTunes or Google Play. Follow their list of suggested questions, which is awesome, and you can find that on their website at storycorps.org. And it's also on the app, embedded in the app. They've got all kinds of great tips and suggestions. So then you want to find a quiet room without a lot of echo. Follow StoryCorps' tips for making your recording sound great. Sit down and go to town. Once the interview's done, you can upload it to the Library of Congress website, which is pretty cool because then you're providing like the human story of the times we're living in. And I think that's something that's incredibly important right now and will benefit society generally, and it'll be great for you and your family member, hopefully too. Let's say you can't get to the person you want to interview because of the pandemic. Maybe it's a good friend you haven't talked to in a while, a grandparent, an aunt or uncle, even a brother or sister who's living in a different town because you're out of the house now. You should check out StoryCorps Connect, which is a browser-based way to talk to people, computer to computer, much like a Zoom call or something you would do on Microsoft Teams, for example. You can record the audio and again, upload it to the Library of Congress and keep a copy for yourself. So lots of different ways through StoryCorps to make audio together and create something that you and your family or you and a close friend will really treasure for a long time. You should check out some of StoryCorps' interviews in the past. They're great at storycorps.org. All right, moving on. Let's say you want to do a podcast, like you want to play around with DIY podcast. Well, I can't say enough about Anchor. And once again, Anchor's completely free. It's a Spotify company. You can download the app on your phone and produce everything from the app. It even includes editing tools, pretty rudimentary editing tools, but that's okay. I mean, it's definitely enough. You can also use transitions. They've got music beds you can use with your audio. Pretty fantastic stuff. Just make sure you follow their tips for how to record. So like, for example, whether it's StoryCorps or Anchor, you want to aim the microphone in your phone toward the person, that you're interviewing and hold it 6 to 10 inches from their mouth. That's kind of how you're supposed to do do it. That's one example of the tips that both Spotify and Anchor provide to help you make radio, make audio, make a podcast. Super cool stuff, totally free. Once again, with Anchor, you can also use your phone or your browser on your laptop. I think that, you can even use it on your iPad or something like that, a tablet device as well. So finally, I just want to say you can always turn on your phone's voice recorder and just let it capture the sounds of everyday life, like reading a bedtime story, playing with Legos, family game night. If you're out skateboarding or shooting hoops, you can capture those sounds. Lay the phone down someplace close but safe, and just kind of turn it on and let it go. And we call that ephemera. Just the sounds of everyday life that happen to come up. I was the kid in the corner with the Radio Shack cassette deck, and I used to do this kind of thing all the time, like on Christmas morning or Easter morning. And you'll be amazed at the memories you'll capture with your family that you'll treasure, pretty much forever. So, I think that's the number one reason to make audio right now is really for yourself and the people you love. So now you can do that with what's in the palm of your hand. And I hope these tips have helped you find a way to maybe try it, do something fun, learn, and maybe launch your own podcast. All right, Bobcats, take care and stay safe. Bye.
Next up, if you're loving the idea of a podcast, you might need a little inspiration about topics, or as we say in the business, content. J-School professor Elizabeth Hendrickson has some ideas for you about how to approach your new podcast to make sure you never run out of creative inspiration.
My name's Elizabeth Hendrickson. I'm an associate professor here at the EW Scripps School of Journalism, and I teach podcasting, among other things. And what I'd like to talk with you about today is how you and your family can create a podcast together. I put together a little game so that you all can be more familiar with what's out there, because once you get a grasp on the actual industry and the different choices that people have to listen to, I think you'll be able to find something that will suit your family just fine. The game I came up with is Name That Podcast. Here are the instructions. Here is the ballot that each player will be using per round, so you need to have a bunch of copies of this middle one. With Apple Podcasts, there are this many different categories of podcasts. So everything from news to sports to fiction, technology, music, you name it, there are 19 of them, so it's probably here. Each of these 19 categories, you click into those, and Apple Podcasts lists roughly 200 different choices of podcasts. So I just took a quick screenshot down here of an example for television and film category. That is the backstory for how to set up this game. Every player gets one of these ballots, and then you set the timer for 5 minutes. The player then goes into Apple Podcasts, finds a podcast that might challenge their family. They write the podcast right there at the top, and then also they take a note of the category and ranking of that podcast. Then they need to go in, click into that podcast, and find out how often they upload new episodes. And you can see that from the dates and the year the podcast launched. That is also listed in that data. And then the format of the show. So that means the person who is playing needs to click into the podcast, read a description of the podcast to figure out what the format is, and then last but not least, give one more hint as to what makes it unique. After 5 minutes, you turn your paper over, and then it's kind of like 20 questions where you can go around and each of you say the hints, and then the other players write down what they believe is the answer. It does really kind of force you to explore what's out there already, so that when it's time for you to actually launch your own podcasts, you have an idea, a good idea what's out there. The most important thing, though, in terms of launching a podcast is that you have a passion for the topic. Whatever the topic is, you need to be able to talk about it. And want to talk about it repeatedly. And then lastly, you need to concentrate down the road on the sound and substance of the podcast. The good quality in terms of audio equipment and also editing, it does make a difference. Generally speaking, in the first 2 minutes, people will decide whether to listen or not. And so that needs to always be the strongest part, the intro. It does help to imagine your audience, even if it's an audience of one, meaning you. But always keep that in your mind as you're writing and creating. And have fun with the game.
Thank you, Dr. Hendrickson. I hope we've inspired you and your family to explore the podcast medium and get creative, and I hope you've learned something new. As a new Scripps Bobcat, I've definitely learned new things through this hosting gig. I'm so happy to be a member of the Scripps family. Thank you for welcoming me.